protein. Over the next 3 days, I'm going to talk about the three major what are called macronutrients, the larger parts that we can break our nutrition down into, in which in this case are responsible for our delivery of energy. In this case, protein, fats and carbs. We also below that have micronutrients, which is different vitamins, minerals, etc. And for protein, there's a few considerations that we might make in determining the amount of protein we have in our diet. And for most people, from my experience, would probably benefit from increasing our protein. That said, though, the key to remember with all these things over the next few days is none of this is at the expense of a calorie deficit if weight loss is our goal. I've met many people over the years who've just started eating more protein but essentially kept everything else the same. They've just increased their calorie intake and they've actually gained weight instead of losing it because they've lost sight of the fundamental important thing, which is creating the calorie deficit. Now, protein may help us in increased volumes create that calorie deficit for a couple of reasons. Generally, more protein heavy foods are more filling, so we may find that we can eat less overall food and less overall calories by following a higher protein diet, but again, it will only elicit weight loss if it's creating that deficit. And also, protein has a higher what's called thermic effect of food. It takes more energy to break down protein into its usable forms than it does with fats and carbs. So all else being equal, if we had exactly the same number of calories, let's say 1500, but we significantly increased the amount of that came from protein and reduced the amount that came from fat and carbs, we would be slightly better off, even though the amount of energy going in was the same, because we were using more of that energy to break the protein down. It's a relatively small figure, but it's a consideration. And protein has great benefits in actually providing the body with what it needs, helping muscular recovery, maintenance, just helping us feel good and function. We do need a certain amount of protein in our diet. We would die relatively quickly if we had no protein whatsoever. We don't necessarily need to go mega high bodybuilder type levels, but for the vast majority of people who follow the standard Western diet, from my experience, would benefit from increasing their protein, both from the chance that it would decrease their overall calorie intake, all else being equal, but that it would also enable them to function better, feel better, they'd recover from their training more quickly, they'd get more results and so on. So in short, you'll probably benefit from increasing your protein intake, but again, not at the expense of making sure that calorie deficit is there if weight loss is your goal.